Evolution, where construction meets innovation.
Evolution. Let's build the future together.
Okay, so today we're diving into something that I think is on a lot of people's minds. And, it's one of those things that kind of gets thrown around a lot, maybe not always with a ton of clarity.
Yeah.
And that is this whole world of artificial intelligence and augmented intelligence.
Yeah, for sure.
And specifically, we're going to be looking at it through the lens of the construction and real estate industries, because I think that's where a lot of the, rubber meets the road in terms of how this technology is actually being applied.
Definitely.
So we've got this great article from Bovolution that we're going to be using as our sort of jumping off point here. And
Bring it out really well.
yeah, they do a really good job of kind of breaking down these concepts. And, it's funny because I think even for people who, we follow this stuff pretty closely,
Right.
it can still sometimes feel a little like,
Murky.
yeah, murky, exactly. Like, are we talking about the same thing?
Is it all just AI or is there a difference,
Right, exactly. And so that's really what we want to kind of tease apart today and hopefully give people a much clearer sense of, what these terms actually mean, how they differ, and then what the implications are specifically for those of us who are, in the construction or real estate world.
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's going to have, I think, a huge impact.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Bovolution article, they start off by talking about the two main types of artificial intelligence, which they shorten to ARI.
Okay.
And this is where it starts to get interesting because they distinguish between what they call narrow ARI and then general ARI.
Yeah.
And so narrow ARI, this is what we're probably most familiar with, right? It's the AI that's really good at one specific thing.
Yeah.
So think of things like, Siri or Alexa or even like, the way that Netflix or YouTube
That suggests things to you.
yeah, recommends content, right? Those are all examples of narrow ARI systems, and they're super powerful.
Oh, yeah. They can be amazing at what they do.
Right, but the key here, and this is what the article really emphasizes, is that these systems are brilliant within their defined limits,
Yeah.
but they can't think outside of that box.
Exactly. They're not going to suddenly start.
Right, they're not going to write you a symphony.
Exactly. They're not composing music or writing poetry.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
They're very task-specific.
Yeah, and that's where the distinction with general ARI comes in, because that's the idea of an AI that can reason and problem solve
Right.
across a wide range of tasks, just like a human can.
Yeah, much more like a human.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think captures a lot of people's imaginations, but the article makes it clear that achieving true general ARI,
It's still a long way off.
yeah, is still a huge scientific hurdle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's important to keep in mind because in practical terms, especially when we're talking about, sectors like construction and real estate,
Right.
we're primarily dealing with these narrow ARI systems that are designed for very specific applications.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what we're seeing being implemented now.
Right. And so this leads us to augmented intelligence, or AUI, which is kind of a whole different animal.
Right.
And this is where things get, I think, particularly interesting for the way we work, because AUI is not about replacing human smarts. It's about boosting them.
Yeah, it's more like a partnership.
Yeah, exactly. And the Bovolution article describes it as a co-intelligence setup, which I think is a really apt way to put it.
It is, yeah.
Because the idea is that these AUI systems are designed to give us better data, stronger foundations for our decisions.
Right, to make us smarter, basically.
Exactly. But the human element remains central. We're still the ones in charge of the final decisions.
We're still calling the shots, but with much better information.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. And what's, I think, so transformative here is not just, understanding the definitions, but realizing that this could really lead some pretty fundamental shifts in the way we approach work in these industries.
Absolutely.
Because if you think about it, you could have this strategic blend of using ARI for these repetitive safety-critical tasks, things that, you don't necessarily need a human to be doing. And then you have AUI working alongside you to help you optimize these complex processes based on all of the data that the ARI is gathering.
Yeah. You're getting the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And so, the Bovolution article gives a really good example of this with these decision support systems, or DSS.
Right.
And these often use something called machine learning, which basically means that the system learns from large amounts of data to identify patterns and make predictions. And so think about, running simulations or making informed predictions in a complicated construction project.
Oh, yeah, that's a perfect example.
Right. You've got the AUI doing the heavy analytical lifting, but then your expertise, your judgment as the human is what guides the interpretation and the ultimate call.
And that's where the real power comes in.
Yeah.
It's not just about the numbers, it's about how we use them.
Right, exactly. And so I think if we really boil it down, the core of what we want to explore today, drawing directly from this Bovolution article, is to really clarify those fundamental differences between ARI and ARI, specifically within the construction and real estate industries.
Right, because like we were saying before, there's a lot of confusion out there.
Exactly. And so we want to make sure that everybody listening walks away understanding, the unique contributions that each of these technologies can make in these fields.
Yeah, and how they're not necessarily competing with each other.
Exactly. Yeah, and the article does a really good job of showing that the fundamental difference really comes down to the level of human involvement and control. And so to really kind of, nail that central point, ARI, as the article illustrates, is focused on autonomous action.
Right.
So in a construction context, this could be something like, fully automated machinery.
Like a self-driving excavator or something?
Yeah, exactly. Performing earth-moving or material transport without direct human control.
The machine's doing it all itself.
Right. The machine handles the entire task. Now contrast that with ARI,
Right.
where the human remains an integral part of the process.
Right.
And these systems are really about equipping us with the data and insights that we need to make more informed choices.
Yeah, so it's more like having a super smart assistant.
Exactly. Yeah. So imagine, construction management using detailed analytics to plan and optimize a complex build.
Right.
You're still at the helm. You're still the one making the decisions.
But you've got a lot more to work with.
But you have these incredible tools and information at your fingertips. And as the Bovolution piece points out, these aren't mutually exclusive concepts. You could very well see both of these operating together on the same construction site.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I think that's where things are headed.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it so exciting, right? Because you can really start to imagine these, scenarios where the technology is enhancing our capabilities in ways that we, haven't even thought of yet.
Totally. Yeah. It's like opening up a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's get into some of the concrete ways that these technologies are being applied in the construction and real estate sectors. And we'll stick with the Bovolution article as our guide here.
Okay. Sounds good.
So when we talk about ARI, what are some of the practical uses that we're seeing already or that, people are anticipating?
Well, one of the big ones is site monitoring and resource management.
Okay.
So think about drones with AI that can fly over a construction site.
Right.
And, track the progress against the schedule.
Wow.
And even spot potential safety hazards.
So it's like having an eye in the sky constantly.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like having a 247 supervisor.
That's amazing. And the article also talked about automated error detection in building plans.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge one.
Right. So you could have AI reviewing blueprints to flag potential clashes or inconsistencies that, a human might miss.
Which happens all the time.
All the time, yeah. And then, of course, there's the real-time site surveillance, using AI to detect unauthorized access or unsafe activities.
Yeah, it's like having a security guard that never sleeps.
Exactly. And so these are all tasks where, AI's ability to process large amounts of data quickly and spot these subtle anomalies can be so valuable.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a game changer.
Yeah. And so now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about augmented intelligence and how it's being used in these industries.
Okay.
And, as we've been discussing, it's all about empowering better human decisions.
Right.
So what are some of the main ways that OI is being utilized in these sectors based on, Bovolution's insights?
Well, the primary application they highlight is in providing this enhanced decision support for construction projects.
Okay.
So these are systems that analyze tons of real-time data.
Right.
Things like material costs, labor availability, weather patterns, project timelines.
Wow. It's like taking all those factors into account.
Yeah, and they use that information to proactively alert project managers to potential bottlenecks or risks that are emerging.
So it's like having this early warning system.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like having a crystal ball that can help you anticipate problems before they happen.
That's incredible. And so the AOI system is providing that analytical power, but then the human manager is the one who uses that information to make the decisions about how to address those issues.
Right, because at the end of the day, it's still a human judgment call.
Exactly. And I think that's so important to emphasize because, there's sometimes this fear that the AI is going to take over. But really what we're talking about here is augmenting human capabilities, not replacing them.
Right. It's about making us better at what we do.
Exactly. And so as we kind of start to wrap up this deep dive and bring everything together, I think the Bobvolution article has given us a really clear framework.
Yeah, they did a great job of laying it all out.
They really did. And
Yeah.
so, just to kind of recap the main points, ARI is about enabling machines to perform tasks autonomously.
Right.
So think of those self-driving construction vehicles handling the heavy lifting. IU, conversely, is about equipping humans with these enhanced data and analytical tools to make more informed and effective decisions.
Right. So like those project managers using real-time insights to optimize complex building projects.
Exactly. And the key takeaway here is that these two approaches aren't necessarily in conflict.
Yeah.
And they can often work in tandem to achieve even greater results.
Yeah, it's not an either situation.
Exactly. And so, to kind of bring it all home, I want to leave you with a final thought to consider. And this is really inspired by the insights in the Bobvolution article.
Okay.
Given the distinct strengths of ARI in automating tasks and AUI in amplifying our decision-making capabilities, how might a thoughtful integration of these approaches within your specific area of focus unlock new levels of efficiency, safety, and overall quality?
That's a great question.
And then what initial steps might you consider taking to begin exploring and experimenting with these AI-driven tools?
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
Exactly. It's about starting to explore those possibilities and seeing what this technology can really do for you.
Absolutely, because I think the potential is huge.
I think so, too. I think we're just scratching the surface.
I agree. And it's going to be really exciting to see where it goes from here.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll catch you next time.
This was Bobvolution.
Where construction meets innovation. Until next time, keep building the future.